Hello everyone. Today I've got a quick little video talking about dynamic rates and some of the changes that I've recently implemented with them and how they now work in our new configurator. Well, they work in our current configurator with new versions of EmuFlight that'll be coming out. And I'd just like to talk a little bit more about rate dynamics. So I'm going to start off with something from UAV Tech and start with that.
So here's kind of the real kicker, that rate dynamics with the sensitivity and the correction produces about the same result as a low pass filter on the sticks. This gray line you see right here is a simple PT1 low pass filter, and you can see how the effect is. So in Betaflight, if you go...
So you heard what UAV Tech was saying there. He was saying that this rate dynamics is the same thing as an LPF filter, just a simple low-pass filter. However, I'm going to show you that that is simply not the case using his same tool that he was messing around with. Yeah, I can do that quite simply here. So, just a simple example. If you've got rate dynamics set up with a sensitivity of 25, this I term is actually the correction. And you look at this against a low pass filter of 3 Hertz. You can see that difference. Okay, well, I'm filtering too much. Alright, let's try something that is less filtering, 4 Hertz. Okay, now look at that. It overshoots this orange graph, yet it doesn't follow it up here. Okay, well maybe I'm still filtering too much. Let's try that. That's 6 Hertz. It's still overshooting here, and it's not as fast here at the start of the move. If I remember correctly, no, was it this? Yeah. If you look at that, I have to go up to about a 15 Hertz filter before this initial, curve is the same with sensitivity and correction versus just a low-pass filter. And now I can even change, my correction to be real values, something like 15. And you see, now look at that. It gives you just a different response than you can get from just a simple low-pass filter. And you can play around with this. I'll link UAV Tech's graphs. You can come and play around with this. It doesn't have the weight, but if you want to play around and pretend this is weight, if you set the sensitivity to 0, then if I set this to 5, that's the same thing as a weight of 95. So for correction and sensitivity, this works. However, if you want to look at this as weight, if I set this as 50, and that's a weight of 50, it's just 100 minus whatever you want to set your weight to. So if I want to set my weight to 60, then that's 40. I'd have to actually type it in here, but 40 would give me a weight of 60. It's just kind of the opposite of the correction when you're looking at it in here. But you can see, if you do want to mess around with this, that you actually can match up the weight with a low-pass filter. One thing to note, though, is that, with Betaflight or anything else, you can't set a low-pass filter to change frequency values as you move the stick, and depending on where you've placed the stick, which is really what gives you that stick feel. Now, something else that I recently did was made it possible to actually view dynamic rates in the CLI. So in order to do that, you have to type set show rate dynamics equals on in the CLI. Type that and then type save. And then what you'll see is in the receipt, let's just go to the PID tuning tab. If you come over here to rate profiles, you can actually see how these have an effect. Hopefully the video picks this up well enough. But if I set these back to their defaults and hit save, this should remove all effects of rate dynamics. So now when I bang my roll stick and bring it back to the center, you can see how sharp that movement is. Now if I say, oh, let's make my rate end really, really slow, save that, and now if I bang my stick, it doesn't ever really reach full rate, but now if I hold it, you see it takes it a second to wind up. You'll be able to see it easier when you do it yourself, but just playing around with that here. If I want to make it as slow as possible across the whole stick, you can check that out. I pull it out and then I just let go. And you can see how it really just smooths off that last bit of movement if you're really looking for that kind of cinematic flow. And you might be like me and prefer the end of your stick to have a bit more movement, feel a bit more snappy. And you can set things up kind of like this. Save that. Now look at that, I get the snappy movement, but when I pull my stick back, I still get this dampened stop that looks really nice on HD footage. I can still perform these snap maneuvers, yet it still just eases into the stops. It's real nice. Yeah, it's something you can play with, and something just to show you here, just kind of fun. Bring the weights down and set the stick sensitivity very high. If I come here to the receiver tab, if I just hold the stick, I get about 1998. And if I bang the stick, you can see that it goes past, which is what rate dynamics is doing. So as you move the stick past, you move the stick to the end of its deflection, and rate dynamics pushes it past there if you want it set up that way. Which, like I showed here, depending on how you set things up, you can really get yourself a quad that's, let's just say that you can get yourself a quad that's still quite snappy. Yet it's near the center of your stick. It's nice and smooth, and it's almost hard to make it do abrupt maneuvers that you wouldn't want. If I really try, I can still do it, but it's just some of the power of rate dynamics. So that's some of the new updates coming with rate dynamics. Another thing to note that I recently worked on is before, rate dynamics was based on your receiver update rate. So if you were using Crossfire and you set it up so it could switch between 150 hertz and 50 hertz, when it would make that change from 150 hertz to 50 hertz, the rate dynamics would feel entirely different. If you had something that was smoothing your sticks a bit, adding to some of that feel, that cinematic feel at 150 hertz, when it switched to 50 hertz, you might have felt that effect way stronger, and it may have felt a lot more latent than you've wanted to. I've rewritten some code so it's dynamic now, so when it does make that change, it'll act the same. So now any receiver, regardless of its update rate, should act the same. That does mean, however, if you're using a receiver that's slower than 150 hertz, rate dynamics will feel different. Actually, anything that's not 150 hertz, it'll feel a little bit different, but it should feel the same across the board. So now any receiver, any update rate should have the same feel with rate dynamics. The same settings should give you the same exact feel. That was a bit of annoying math to figure out, but I got it there. Yeah, so now if you really want to just play with what, dynamic rates looks like, you can just bang the sticks around in here. You can even change your actual rates, and in case you think these rates are funny, that's the, rate setup that I currently use. I quite like that. But yeah, you can come in here, tweak whatever it is, watch this little preview, see how it works. Throw your rate dynamics on there, see how that's working. Yeah, and then just one last note. When you're setting up your quad, you might not want to turn on this show rate dynamics feature, just because, as you can see, my throttle moves up to 2011 and all the way down to 988. Yet my roll, pitch, and yaw, they do not. They only go up to 1988 and all the way down to 1002. And the reason for that is when I run the dynamic rates through it, and I've set it up so that it works this way, it now shows you what dynamic rates is doing, but it also shows the processed receiver, whereas these images are just the raw receiver, the raw input values that it's getting from your receiver. That's what this currently shows on throttle and all my aux channels, is just the raw value before any filtering, before anything else. And it's helpful for setting up your stick low threshold and your high threshold and your center and your dead band, all of that, because this is processed after you've set up your stick thresholds and all of those. So something to be aware of. When you're setting up your quad, you might not want to have this turned on. Once you've set it up, though, you can come in here, turn it on, play with all these settings, really just have fun messing around with dynamic rates. This will be out in the next release of EmuFlight. We're just trying to finalize a few things. It'll be a minor release, but it should fly better, handle better. It'll be fun. Hope you all enjoyed that. Have a good one and enjoy flying EmuFlight.